Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Appreciate your interest in our research. So I'm Rich Wawrzyniak, Principal Analyst at the SHD Group. We did the initial RISC-V market analysis that we released in January of this year. And I was asked by the RISC-V International to present some preliminary findings of the next report that we're about to release coming up in probably about mid-January. So, a couple of things. One, thank you very much, all of you, everyone that participated in the interviews that we did and the discussions that we've had throughout the year and most recently yesterday and today. Very helpful for us to collect the right type of data, get your opinions, your perspectives on the market, how it's evolving, which will appear in the report. So to give you a little bit of perspective on what the results were. So since we released the report in January of this year, the free report has been downloaded by over 1,000 individuals, hundreds of companies. About 56% of the downloads went to engineers, and about 15% went to C-level recipients. I spoke to one of the companies that's exhibiting here yesterday that had downloaded the report, and he informed me that once he got it, he forwarded it to over 60 people in his company. So while we know that 1,000 people had downloaded this, we really don't know how many people it ended up in the hands of. We suspect it's much more than 1,000, probably 2 or 3, because all those companies that downloaded it, I'm sure they shared it internally, which is great. Like to hear that, but it makes it a little hard to track the exact numbers of how many people actually viewed it. So we continue to get press coverage about the analysis, appearances in high-profile publications, the Wall Street Journal, Nikkei Shimbun, Electronic Design, SemiWiki, and others. In fact, I just learned yesterday that a very popular electronics magazine in India did an article on the report in Indian, not in English, but more is better, I guess, so that we're happy about that. And we now show a total of about 200,000 views of those articles collectively. So it's probably more like 250 now. And again, thanks to the sponsors that we had of the report and to the RISC-V International Board and Callisto Redmond, and all of the companies, all of you folks that contributed to provide data and perspectives to us for this report. Appreciate it very much. So this is a slide that Callisto presented yesterday with a little bit more information on it. So the yellow bars are on the left axis, and the total of those bars is on the right axis in the blue line. And so in the preliminary analysis that we've been doing on the RISC-V market, the next report goes out another year, 2031, and by that point we're projecting RISC-V unit shipments to be over 20 billion units. So just in the difference between the last year, or the last report, which ended in 2030, and this report, which will end in 2031. In 2031, that's about a 4 billion unit increase. And I can tell you honestly that in listening to the NVIDIA presentation yesterday, where they publicly affirmed that they are using RISC-V finally, and in talking to people on the show floor and in various meetings the last couple of days, and also the recent events between ARM and Qualcomm, I suspect when I finally finish this analysis, these numbers will actually be higher. I think the market is, there has been momentum behind RISC-V, we all know that. But now it's starting to translate into real unit shipments. And I think also in talking to companies about their experiences and what they're finding, as you might imagine, people, because it's still early days, are a little bit reticent of sharing, real hard data. Many of their customers do not want their names used or publicly disclosed. But I find now that, maybe it's a poor analogy, the ground underneath the feet of these companies, the RISC-V IP companies and other companies that are shipping RISC-V products, is solidifying. It's more firm than it was even last year at this conference. And so they are starting to be a little bit more forthcoming in sharing information. Still no names, and that's fine. I don't expect anybody to give us the actual numbers that they're using. That's fine too. But an indication of the trends, of the growth paths, of some firm data that you can use, that I can use in the analysis. And we're starting to get that, and thank you. I want to thank you very much. It makes my job a little bit easier. So this is another slide that Callista showed, again with more information. And what we tried to do is show where the top markets for RISC-V are. And so each one of those pie charts represents a category that we had in the RISC-V report: networking, computer, consumer, automotive, industrial. And I also pulled out data center. In the initial report, data center was an application or a market, if you will, within computer. But in looking at what's happening in the data center space and the initial or continued acceptance of RISC-V into that market, and now some companies, while not giving any unit volumes, publicly stating some of the names of the companies in the data center space that are using RISC-V, I felt that it was time to pull out data center as a separate pie chart here to give an idea of where RISC-V is being used. Specifically, in the data center application, the focus is on the high end, high performance. And you could say today, comparing any of the RISC-V IP cores to ARM, the highest performing ARM cores, they're still not quite there, but they're getting a lot closer. And I think that trend in itself is reinforcing the desire of the data center, people doing designs for data center, to give RISC-V a look and an actual design in. So based on all of that, I thought it was time to pull data center out. It seemed data center, because of the revenues involved, attracts a lot of attention, and I think it's could be viewed as a bellwether for RISC-V. So like I said, when I finally do this, the final analysis on all this, I suspect that the percentages here will be slightly higher, given the strength that seems to be occurring at the moment. So we also are going to continue the theme of applications in a heterogeneous world. That was the title of the report, with the thought that people doing SoC designs today generally are no longer using all the cores that they are putting in the design from one vendor. They are looking at the cores, the strengths of the individual cores, and picking the best one for whatever function they're trying to create in the part. That opens the door for RISC-V. Initially, it was lower end kinds of cores that were being used, but as I said, as each year passes and the RISC-V CPU IP companies continue to introduce higher performing cores, the use cases for RISC-V are inching upward into higher and higher performance levels. So given that trend, the analysis still favors MCUs, which is the green bar there, as the highest use case. But as you can see, by 2031, let's see if this works here. Coprocessors now become the second highest use case. And I suspect when I finally do the analysis, the blue bar here will probably be a little higher, indicating more usage. So you shouldn't look at this as the bars being cumulative. Each one stands on its own. The reason is, if you think about it, any given design could use all four of these use cases on it, a finite state machine, MCU, a coprocessor, or an apps processor. So it wouldn't be really accurate to add them all up. They each stand on their own. So having said all that, the trend obviously is towards AI. AI is, I jokingly said the last time I gave this presentation that AI was going to be everywhere and probably even end up in your computer mouse. And then Logitech introduced a mouse early in April that had AI on it. So I think that trend is going to continue. I can't honestly say that I know what it does or if it does anything useful, but it's there. So, and I think people are going to continue with that. They're going to add AI essentially to everything. The trick is to make sure that it actually provides a tangible benefit to the end user. Otherwise, there's really no reason to switch, because these parts initially the AI flavored parts initially are going to be probably more expensive than the non-A variants. And if you really can't demonstrate a tangible benefit, why would you switch? My gut says that people will figure this out, that they will be able to demonstrate, conjure up useful or beneficial use cases, and that people will follow through and buy those kinds of solutions over the non-AI solutions. So again, the individual bars are on the left axis. The green line, the total, is on the right axis. And the point of this slide is to point out that, again, if you're doing a design today from scratch and you're adding some sort of AI functionality, you're probably more inclined to look at RISC-V than not. And if that's the case, then AI accelerators of one type or another in these different end applications will be using RISC-V for some level of functionality on those parts. And I think that represents a really great opportunity for the RISC-V community. RISC-V, to reduce it down to its base level, really is made for AI, if you think about it. And the two trends together kind of reinforce each other going forward. And that's one of the factors that propels this, our market forecasts, is the synergy between the two. We also are taking another look at the AI or the RISC-V CPU IP market. We showed this slide last year, and it's in the report. And we think that there's a flip coming, or a switch coming, between being heavily license-centric, driven, the revenues being driven by licensing, to where royalties catch up through the shipment of actual devices. And as you go throughout oops, what happened? Yeah. Technology, isn't it good?
I'm not the qualified AV guy. The laptop is down.
Yeah, but it's no, it's up, but it's not showing slides. It's showing slides, but not my slides.
And it's not up here, and it's not back there. I'll check and see if the plugs have worked loose. Otherwise, you're gonna have to talk through them.
Uh-oh. Now we're in trouble. We're in big trouble now.
I have no idea.
Okay, sorry about that. Well, we were almost to the end anyway, so it's not that big a deal. So what I was saying about the IP market was that towards the end, the out years of the forecast, the licensing, or I'm sorry, the royalties far outstrip the licensing revenues. And that's indicative of the fact that the RISC-V designs, the SoCs that are using RISC-V are starting to ship in massive volumes. So like the first slide I had up there talking about the unit volumes, 20 billion units roughly in 2031 out of about 80 billion SoCs, thereabouts. So there's plenty of room for growth, without a doubt. And as I said before, based on the things that have been happening at this conference and in general around the RISC-V marketplace and ecosystem, I fully suspect that when I finally end up doing the analysis, that those numbers will be somewhat higher. I can't tell you how much higher, not dramatically, I don't think, but higher. And growth is good. We need growth, and that kind of momentum I think is very beneficial for RISC-V in general. So if you're doing RISC-V, and I suspect if you're sitting out there, you probably are, that's probably good news. The not so good news is that there's plenty of competition. But in the scheme of things, competition in general is good. It provokes innovation and ingenuity, and that's certainly something the market can use. That was basically it, except to say that the new report that we're doing, again, we'll look at about 57 end applications. We will be also, again, profiling finite state machines, MCUs, coprocessors, app processors. We'll have a section on RISC-V CPU IP, a section on ASIC design starts for all the different end applications in the devices that we're profiling, about 10 different types of SoCs in each end application. There'll be a regional section on regional splits for revenues, and an extensive ecosystem guide that will be free for anyone to come and register their company. This is a sponsored report, so sponsors would get 1 or 2 slides of their own, no commercials, but statements of what their company is and what they're doing. Sponsors would get an expanded presence in the ecosystem guide. So we expect to launch the report, the finished report, sometime around mid to end January. And we'll probably have another free version of it to be downloaded. The first report was 227 pages. I'm not going to do that again. One of the reasons why it was so long was I put in all the data tables and charts. So this time around, there'll be a separate spreadsheet that contains most of that data. So the actual report itself will be probably, I'm guessing, around 140 pages. Still quite lengthy, but not the marathon that the initial report was. And I'm sure you all will thank me for that, because it was really a task to get through all of that in one sitting. I couldn't do it. I'm sure nobody else did it. But thank you anyway for all the people that downloaded it. We really appreciate it. So I think I'm out of time, but is there any time for questions? Any questions?
Yeah, so since this is the last breakout, we can take questions and run a little long here.
Okay.
So we got a question from the back here.
This is great information. What's the cost of the report if you're not a sponsor?
So we're still working on the pricing for the sponsorships. Generally speaking, for the first report that we did, the report itself was not for sale until after it was released. And if I remember correctly, the price of the report was the same price as the lowest level of sponsorship. So pardon me for not giving you a number, but we're still trying to work out the number. It's not hundreds of thousands of dollars, unfortunately. It's something that's affordable, and again, depending on the company, we'll work with you on it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Going once?
I got one.
All right.
No, I know him. Don't give him the mic.
You won't give it up?
Hey, thanks, Phil. So, Rich, with the news announced yesterday with Qualcomm and ARM, can we expect that may, incentivize you or make you want to go back and look at some of the assumptions in the market model that you've created? Or do you think it's just brinksmanship and everything's going to get solved?
Well, it's probably a little of both. Whenever I do one of these, I always go back and look at the assumptions because things change. The question is, have they changed? So forget for a moment the NVIDIA presentation of yesterday. Forget for a moment the ARM Qualcomm thing. Take those out. What else has changed substantially between now and the last time the report was done? Generally speaking, a little bit more acceptance in the data center. More, I would say, affirming of some of the use cases for AI, which would probably drive some volume. Some companies have gone out of business. Some companies have started business. That's normal. Things like that. So bringing NVIDIA and ARM and Qualcomm back in, I was very pleasantly surprised to see the NVIDIA presentation so that they have finally publicly said that they are using RISC-V. I mean, everybody kind of knew that. Why else would you be on the board of a RISC-V International? But they never publicly stated it, so now that's out there. And I think that in designers' minds, anybody that was on the fence wondering, well, is it a flash in the pan? Do I want to take a risk? No pun intended. That kind of stuff. I think that removes a lot of those kinds of arguments. If NVIDIA is doing it, it must be real. It must be okay. How can I not do it? So that's going to drive some acceptance, some additional market presence. The ARM Qualcomm thing it's a mess, frankly. You can look at that, like 10 different ways as to why did they do it, why didn't they do it, what did they do, what's the solution. For sure, it's probably going to end up in the courts. Those kinds of things, to be quite honest, in my experience, nobody wins. Neither company is going to win. The market's not going to win. The industry's not going to win. The lawyers will win.
What about RISC-V?
Risk, I think, if this goes, the whole 9 yards, I suspect it is a shot in the arm for RISC-V because, some of the people that I would imagine use ARM for whatever are now starting to question what's going on here. They did it to Qualcomm. Can they do it to me? What happens if they do? What do I do? How do, you know, this seems to be around the AMBA, use of AMBA in the Nova Core chip. Do I have to rip it out? If I do, who do I go to? How long is that going to take? What's it going to cost me? Do I have to stop production? You know, all those kinds of things now start to come into play. And, you know, those are kind of frightening questions if you think about it. If I was running a company, the last thing I want to do is be frightened. I want certainty, I want surety for my company and for my design teams and for my products. So I can't say honestly that this sparks a wholesale revolution or that the market's turned upside topsy-turvy. I can't say that. But I gotta believe that people are asking a lot of questions. Questions are good.
All right, I think we're out of time. Thanks so much. Go ahead.
So I have a question for you folks. Is this kind of information useful for you? Well, Derek, that means we need to raise the price. No, yeah, it's free on the website. Yeah, you got it. Thank you all.
Thank you,
very
Richard.
much all for coming. I appreciate it.